Hold a penny, hold a dime, nothing replaces holding time. Miracles of mysteries, mysteries of miracles, round. It all circles round. Checkmate, king me, Yahtzee, word up. Strategy, movement. Each moment, each day, to thine own self never betray, for then the sparkle, the twinkle, starts to turn gray. Think, think, think before you say, 'cause the backwash tastes worse than decay. So passes another day. Why am I telling yous all about me and my life? 'Cause I'm semi-psychic, and I know you'll want to watch it in the future. So why waste time? Go ahead and watch it now, and be one step ahead of the rest. My trip to the other side of my family started with a bad reaction to sumac. On the cusp of 15, was still about a week or two before we were moving from Fairfax, Virginia, to our new home in Washington State. Both myself and my 7-year-old stepsister got scratched by a sumac tree. Hers was on the neck, whereas mine was under my chin, so my entire face swelled up and itched. So as we traveled by car across the entire country, I did it with a pink, swollen face. Just what every 15-year-old girl dreams of happening, especially since we played tourist along our route and stopped at cool places along the way, like Circle B Ranch, pink-faced and all. I started 10th grade at my new school in Washington, and I fell in love with it. I was amazed it had an indoor pool, a greenhouse, and handicap ramps everywhere. That was pretty impressive for the early 80s. Somewhere later in the year, around February, my stepmom and I had a real Cinderella moment. When she realized I was not intimidated with her bullying ways, she shoved me. I was ready to take my pain baton out of retirement, but my dad shoved her away before I could. Then he tried to defuse the situation by taking me out for a driving lesson. But he failed. 'Cause when we got back home, my stepmom kept ranting and raving, and then it all escalated to the point of my dad getting a bloody lip. This caused him and I to move out. Around 2 months later, we moved back in. I thought at the time it was because his Winky got lonely, but now with 20/20 hindsight, I think he did it to save money. 'Cause about 2 months after we were back at the house, Dad got kicked out. 'Cause he stayed out all night long at a work party with his friend Andy. Later we discovered Andy was actually Andrea, who would later become his third wife. I stayed with my stepmom 'cause I didn't think going back to my ma's house would help her with her new marriage. My stepmom did take me to get my driver's license both times, since I failed the first one. I should have passed easily since I had already been driving illegally for months, running my stepmother's errands everywhere. But I was nervous and I failed the parallel parking portion of the test, even though I had just demonstrated to myself and my stepmom that I could do it right before failing the test. Hey. My stepmom's generosity and concern about my nerves for the second test resulted in her offering me a Valium prior to taking the test. Nice. Real nice. Sometime after that in my junior year, I can't rightly recall exactly when, I was driving a friend home from church youth group who lived about 5 blocks away. On the road to her house, I got a flat tire, and then I became mortally petrified in the aspect of having to call my stepmom. See, I wasn't supposed to drive anyone home. When I made the phone call, a new wrinkle cracked in my brain, and I was once again back in the land of the lost. I knew I no longer had a home to go home to. Eventually, I did land safely in an unofficial foster home of genuinely good people through my church. I was safe, but I was not really home on the inside, so I continued to live in the moment, going to school and adapting to my foster sister's way of life. During all the trauma and drama of ending up in a foster home, I was working at my beloved high school's guidance counselor's office. That job gave me enough money to buy my first car that I named Hot Tamale. It was a 4-door 1979 red Mazda. I loved that car. Having that job also led me to another job with a local naval base. Many odd or intense things happen, as they do to any average teenager, but they generally turn out to be normal circumstances. I do think that me and my hot tamale did share an odd moment together. See, my girl had a tendency to leak and burn oil. I mentioned this to a co-worker at the naval base, and he volunteered to change my oil and my oil pan gasket. So we met up on a Saturday, and when he was done, the hue of twilight started to settle in, and I headed over to a friend's house to meet up with my foster sister. By the time I got there, it was dark, which helped me notice the hood of my car was ajar. I could tell it was ajar because a yellow light was emanating from underneath it. What the fuck? I popped the hood and discovered my engine was on fire. Holy shit! I freaked! I ran into the house yelling like a true sailor's daughter, along with, "Wade, Wade! My car's on fire! God damn it, my car's on fire!" It was at that moment, as the entire family came rushing into the room, that I realized I was not at Wade's house. Oh, crap! But my car was on fire, so I apologized and asked if they had a fire extinguisher. The father of the family said yes, and as he went to get it, I asked him if it would mess up my engine, and he said, probably. Instantly, I processed the fact that I had no one to bail me out, and I needed the car. I love my car and driving. So I said, "Well, fuck that!" I ran back outside to my car, and like the bionic woman, I blew, and I blew, and I blew the fire out. My girl did die on me about 4 months later by shooting a piston through the block. Now that is a horrible sound. In Washington State, there's an inlet of water called the Puget Sound, and driving around it on an early Sunday morning was my foster sister's and I's version of church, in more than one sense. She'd sleep while I'd drive and play my Def Leppard tape over and over again. Often there was a heavy fog on the sound that was very Stephen King-like. My mind was astonished as it visually witnessed such a beautiful natural phenomena. The fog touched my spirit as its beauty soothed my soul. I tried waking up my foster sister so she could see it too, but she was like, "Whatevs," and went back to sleep. An odd spiritual thing that did happen to me while living in my foster home was seeing my aura on 2 different occasions. It was green, and it freaked me out. The first time happened while I was at school. I decided to partake in some scurbage with a friend of mine behind school. I had never done it at school before and chose never to do it again because I got freaked out. Me and the girl I smoked with had the same government class afterward, and when we got there, I asked her for her mirror because I felt kind of weird, you know? So when I saw my reflection, I started to silently freak out. I didn't know it at the time, but I was looking at my green aura in the reflection. I asked my friend if she could see it, and she said she couldn't. I looked again, and I was still green. So I shut the case and realized it was another one of those odd life moments. The only other time I saw my green aura was when I was on one of my endless diets, and again I smoked some scurbage with another friend of mine on a Saturday, And again, it freaked me out, especially combined with his story of seeing reindeer hoofs on his roof as a child the night before Christmas. Now, since no one could give me an answer as to what the fuck I was seeing my aura was all about, I filed that thought away for the moment until I could figure out what was going on. As time went by in my senior year of high school, I decided to make a phone call to my father asking him for money for a high school ring, and he took the opportunity to abandon me yet again. I should have expected his response if I had paid attention to his past actions, but even as a kid at 17, you still have this hope or desire for your parents to be there for you. And it wasn't just about a ring, that was just the symbol, the out front reason for the phone call. The underlying reason was to see if one last time there was a possibility for a future relationship between my father and I as father and daughter. But the words he chose to use, not regarding the ring, let me know then and there that that possibility of that relationship, that door, was closed. I knew at that point I was on my own. I loved and feared my independence, but I accepted it for being what it was. Until my beloved second car, a 1962 black shift-in-the-column Ford Falcon I named Christine, died by locking up her transmission as I arrived at the first gate of my job. My heart sank. It was like the last thing I had that was truly mine, that I loved with all of my heart, was leaving me. I saw no purpose in continuing to keep up the charade like everything was okay or normal, and I figured if this is what life had in store for me, I didn't want anything to do with it. I spent the next few hours secretly planning steps I needed to take to accomplish my new goal. First, I went to the store and bought a box of over-the-counter sleeping pills. Next, I wrote notes of goodbye. Then I waited for everyone to go to sleep. So around 1 o'clock in the morning, I took a half a bottle of whiskey from my foster family's liquor cabinet, left the notes for my foster family, and walked to some beautiful woods about 3 miles from the house. As I drank the whiskey, I sang and cried to the stars, popping every pill in the box, thinking I'd never have to see this world again. As you can see, my first attempt didn't go so well. When I woke up early the next morning, I was pissed. I mean, what the fuck? I took an entire box of sleeping pills and woke up. And woke up early to boot. Fuck! So I walked back to the store and wrote a check that would later bounce for a razor and aspirins and started to walk back to my spot. I never did make it back there, where I would have discovered I made a poor choice with the flicker razor blade, 'cause it has wires in front of the blade, making it difficult to make a clean slice with. The reason I never made it back to my spot was because my foster sister and her boyfriend found me. When they did, I was still madly numb and didn't give a royal fuck. Even an adult mentor from my church youth group that I admired, respected, and loved came by, and he couldn't get through to me. I was, for lack of a better term, disconnected. I could still walk, talk, think, and drink, but I had no apathy. I could hear his words, I saw his compassion, but I was empty. I could not give him what he was looking for. In later days, my foster sister decided we should skip school here and there, and I was still mentally living in the land of I don't give a royal fuck, so I went along with it. I used my forgery skills for the notes, and it worked for the first 5 times or so, but eventually we did get caught. I didn't care, but my foster sister freaked and decided there was just no way we could go back home. So we gathered our monies and took off with her boyfriend down south towards Nevada. End page 3.